There we
Not
go.
going to do that one. I'm going to do that one. There we go.
Oh, do I need to...
Listen,
so
I
do you
had
want-
you perfectly placed, and then as soon as
I
you
didn't
sat down...
move this chair!
As soon as you sat down, you dragged the chair to that
I dragged
direction.
it forward.
You dragged it to that? I
Not
watched you
to
do
the
it. I knew I
side.
was going to complain about it as soon as you were
I
like,
went closer
"Why
to
am
the table.
Why am I off center?
Everything's my fault, isn't it? Everything's
Everybody's
my
got to
fault.
take responsibility. I
It's
guess.
never Joe. It's always me.
Hey, I said it right where it needed to be. There was little markers on it. You know,
You're like, it's not my fault that everything's
you go
always
on
your
the stage
fault.
and there's that little X, right? You know what that X means? Like, stand right there.
We should
And
have
the
an
cameras
X.
are fixed.
There's no X on the floor here.
Your chair was the X. It was absolutely the X. And you were like, oh, this X, I should be over here. And then every cameraman's like, oh, son of a bitch, grinding the gear. Like, I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. But anyway.
Grinding the gear.
Anyway, how we doing?
Good, how are you?
Fantastic.
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 Friday Eve. Any big weekend plans coming up?
No.
Yeah,
No.
nothing exciting. I started watching a show recently. There were little markers. What is that from? I don't know. Let us know, Rick. Started watching a new show. My daughter and I started watching, and I bet you would hate it. You would hate it. Have you seen The Pitt? So it's like nominated for all kinds of awards. Noah Wyle, the dude from ER.
Why would I hate it? Tell me that
Hospital
first.
drama.
I don't want to figure out why you think I would hate it.
If you think Big Bang Theory is woke,
Yeah.
this is the wokest of the woke shows I have ever seen. All the buzzwords, all the social issues. Very first episode we're watching, and Noah Wyle, you remember him? He was on ER. He is like the head doctor of the emergency room. Like, he is like in charge of this department and everything. Well, he keeps butting heads with like someone who's in charge of the administration side. And she keeps coming down from the admin offices, yelling at him about budgets and things that they have to stick to and all this stuff. And he's like, well, we need more beds. I know we've got beds upstairs. And she's like, you know, we can't afford to staff that floor. And he says, well, if you paid them a livable wage, then you would have staff. And I'm like, not, well, maybe if you paid them enough, or, well, they don't make enough to make it worth it. Like, there's a million ways that could have been worded. Yeah. But they chose the phrase, if you paid them a livable wage. And I said, oh, here we go.
So here's the thing. So I don't mind woke. We are a cornucopia. Whatever your expression is, you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a channel for every person, and not every message is going to be for you. And the tolerance in our society is when something's there, like, you're free to mock it, because Saturday Night Live took all of those stereotypes and cultural phenomenons and mocked it relentlessly so that we didn't take things overly serious. That was the funness of being part of the United States, is nothing was sacred outside of our principles. Everything, every behavior, every mannerism, every stereotype was fodder to be made fun of, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think if you've got a show that goes woke, nobody sent me a letter that said, you must watch this show. Some people like it, and they like the confirmation of their beliefs. Great. That's great entertainment for you. But my only opposition to things, when you are silly to that point, that comedy doesn't relentlessly poke fun and lampoon you from now until the end of time.
In fact, it was hilarious. We just started watching this maybe a week ago, and then just a couple nights ago, like 2 nights ago, we were watching The Simpsons, and they did a parody of The Pitt. Perfect. And had all the doctors and everything on it, and we're poking fun at the stereotypical nature of the show. And I was like, okay, it's not just me. Even The Simpsons are like, come on.
Yeah, and we probably got a couple more years of that woke stuff, because when, during 2021 or 2020, 2021, because everybody was home during that period of time, they produced an insane amount of content. And they backlogged and put in the can a bunch of scripts and shows that and paid a ton of money because they had the audience that was captured in their homes. And right now they're discovering there's no money in woke because nobody wants to watch that drivel. But there's still some stuff that's long been paid for during that boom that they're going to float out there. They're going to find out, oh, it's time to renew this season, and we've got like 17 people that watch this thing and really like it.
Yeah.
Let's replace it with something else.
Because every time they do it, every time you get the new topic, it's like in a lecture. It can't just be a normal.
Yes.
Like there was a patient who was it's a lesbian couple. Okay, that's fine. Like it takes place. It's meant to be Pittsburgh. And so obviously in a big city, in a very busy, bustling emergency department, you're going to see all kinds of people. But they make it like in a lecturing way about this couple. And then another patient, they call it back and they show the woman calling the patient, and she rolls her eyes and she gets all angry. And then you realize, oh, this is a transgender person. And she was just misgendered. Mm-hmm. And so as she's getting her arm sutured because she has this deep laceration and all this stuff, you see this young 20-something-year-old med student go, oh, just a minute, before she leaves. She types in her chart. She's like, I noticed you were misgendered in your chart, so I fixed that for you. And they're like, oh, very cool, thank you. And I'm like, You're like, what, shaming everybody, lecture? Like, you don't have to push it this hard. It was a cool scene, and it was like a laceration, and all this girl's learning how to, like I said, I have no issues with some of these social topics, but when it's done in a way that, like, you're literally kind of lecturing us in every scene, in every case. Like, can we just make this a show that's entertaining and interesting? And
thankfully, they started hiring directors and writers that is not their sole mission, is to take an audience that they didn't deserve, are only there because of their predecessors, and because you're there, they're going to snap lectures at you and not expect the next generation to say, F you, I go here, I come to this place to have a distraction that is entertainment. I didn't come here to, like, figure out how many bad ways I am or society is bad. This isn't like an advocacy thing. This is entertainment. Yeah.
I mean, and again, I've only seen a few episodes. Another example, one of the med students, one of the main characters, is supposed to be a girl with autism. And they have a little boy come in, and they can't wake him up, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong with this little boy. Turns out he got into his dad's THC gummies. And the mother is freaking out. I can't believe you let him get these, and he could have some problems now with his brain, and what if he gets autism? And then she snaps, there's no direct correlation between THC and autism.
Take the bait.
And I'm telling you, this is in the first 2, maybe 3 episodes. Every single social issue they just lectured you on, and I'm just like, all I can think is Joe would have been like, I am now done. Yeah. I am done with this show because I see what you're doing. This isn't entertainment. This isn't meant to be interesting or thought-provoking or exciting ER department, or look, it's Pittsburgh. Like, they mentioned Mr. Rogers, and we're close to Pittsburgh, and so we're going to love this show. It is, how many more social issues can you push in our face and make everybody feel badly about?
Yeah, so in the marketplace, like in real business, right? Your job is to exchange value with another person where they are made happy at the end of the transaction, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole goal. When there's competition in that. So if I make a show that makes everybody feel terrible after they've watched it, but then Joe Smith over there can go make a show and he can do the exact opposite, but it makes you feel good, then viewers and patrons will go to the thing that why they came there. You're not held hostage. Now, if Hollywood is made up of nothing but these liberal activists, it sets the stage for another production company to design content that people like. And people move around from show to show. They get sick of being lectured. There was a guy that I really liked enjoying. He was a guy up in Cleveland. He does property inspections, right? So basically he goes to a house and he inspects it for investors to find out, if there's plumbing issues or if the house is a wreck, if there's squatters there. Really interesting to watch because you never know what you're going to run into. It's almost like the Crocodile Hunter, but human version of it, right? He deals with a lot of shit. And so all he had to do was be entertaining and why I was there. That's all.
Yeah.
Right? And you know what he decided to do while he had there? He made some off-the-cuff remarks about how religion is something stupid and anybody who watches it, listens to it, pays attention to are idiots, right? And I was like, never again. Unfollowed, never watch your content again. And I'll go find somebody where I was investing time in one person, squandered it because of a offhand comment, and he lost a viewer. And that's the way that you kind of like regulate this. If Hollywood's not making it and some production studio in Tennessee makes it and they get more viewers, it is going to force by marketplace all those idiots who thought it was a really good idea, show them it's not a real good idea. So I don't care if you watch that show or not, but if you turn it off, you're voting to not watch stuff like that.
Yeah, and because part of me, I was like, I even hesitated to bring this up because there's going to be the haters that push back and like, oh, so what, you don't care about these things or you're a terrible person? And I'm like, I don't mind any of these issues. But I'm telling you, in 3 episodes, one patient, the doctor, the medical professional was Hispanic. And he brought a guy back. He's like, this waiting room's like a third world country out there. I bet you feel right at home. Like clear racist,
right.
Clear. And I said, how is it in 2 to 3 episodes we have touched on every single social issue right in your face? And that's what annoys me. The social issue itself, maybe it's a big deal. It should be addressed in certain ways. I don't mind it. But I know what you're doing here, and that's annoying. Yeah. You didn't make this show to be entertaining or to be about Pittsburgh or anything other than, wow, we're going to use this to lecture you every minute possible.
And what's so wrong about being a hater? I mean, it's a free country.
Haters gonna hate.
You can have your thing. You can have all of your biases. You can have all of your opinions. And the deal is that I'm not going to force myself to not be a hater so that somebody else can benefit from me suppressing something that's intuitive, something that's my opinion. Nobody's going to force me into thinking or believing a certain thing. Conversations and debates are about people, airing and expressing those things, making them fight. So do I think, we'll use one of them, gays and lesbians, right? Mm-hmm. And do I have any problem with anybody being gay or anybody being a lesbian? No. Not at all. Because the libertarian man says, you go do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, put that in bed. That one's done. What do I disagree with? I disagree with having lifestyles try to recruit in different age groups to try to make more lesbians, make more gay people, right? Mm-hmm. That recruiting is like, that wasn't a natural occurrence. This is where culture tries to change culture on purpose by taking... And our objection with what you do to children and what they should be exposed to and how you program and indoctrinate these kids, they should be free of that, right? Yeah. So if a president has a 15-year-old kid, they are never on the docket for attacks or opinions. You leave them effing out of it because they're not adults. They cannot handle the input from outside. You know who's responsible for kids? Their parents, period. So if I want your kid to know that the gay and lesbian lifestyle is on the menu, right? And parents say, I don't even want that to be a thing. I don't even want to have that conversation. Who's right? Culturally, you would say, what, are you a bad parent that you don't want to open them up to gays and lesbians? That's how you take bigotry and allow it to fold? None of your effing business at all. Unless you want an auditor to peel through everybody's lives, right, and see what kind of bad behaviors you're handing over to your kid and how you're fomenting bigotries and other deal. So everybody is free to express themselves as long as it doesn't mess with other people.
Yeah, because it to me, the worry is if there's ever like a corrupt, greedy medical professional and they see a child that maybe is a little confused or questioning or I'm not sure how I feel, and instead of saying, let's answer some questions first. Let's get a good footing on what we're actually dealing with and what you're actually feeling. If they immediately go to, well, yeah, you're probably trans. Let's go ahead and start putting some hormone blockers in you. Let's schedule you for surgery. Because cha-ching, 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 medical procedures. And I'm going to go ahead and make some money off of this. Evil. And I'm not saying that's every case. But if there is a risk of that, then... yeah, I want to protect kids from that. Like, you don't jump to something irreversible and damaging immediately. Like, that shouldn't be the first go-to is, oh, because a child whose brain is not done growing has some questions, let's go ahead and go all in. Like, my son doesn't even want to play a sport more than one season. He changes his mind so much. Mm-hmm. Why in God's name would I sign him up for something irreversible? And if it's to benefit someone else, that's wrong.
Well, as a parent, you have options of all the realms of influences you want to participate in. But if your favorite is like, it's a badge of honor if your kid ends up being gay, so you can parade them around as the wokest of the woke and get a badge of honor, that's an evil, right?
Yeah.
Almost like if I started indoctrinate, like my kid, I want him to find his own path. I want him to model behaviors with me and principles, but I don't want to dictate where he ends up. And I'm not going to wear it. If my kid becomes in business or in sciences, I'll be happy, but I don't want to get to the end of the road and find out the only reason he became that is because I influenced him so hard. I'll never know if what he would have been had I not put the hammer down on him and made him become something. And so I'm really cognizant, really put a lot of thought into being as unbiased as I can in what influence I push on him, because he is so damn impressionable. He's looking up. I could make him dress up as a dinosaur tomorrow. If you gave me 2 years, I would lay down all of the underpinnings to make dinosaur cosplay a thing. And you know it, and culture has that influence. The outside world has that influence, and parents are sitting in a back seat right now because they're apathetic, and they're afraid to say that they're, the bigot who didn't want to, push a kid into lifestyles. They're already hard on their own. Maybe if you took all of gay, lesbian lifestyle, transgender lifestyle, and you could tell me that it's an easy road. They're not going to have a hard time, and it's not going to confuse them, and it's not going to make complications down the road. Fine, it's a 1-for-1 prospect, but it's not. And until it is, like, I'm not ever in a million years going to pick a favorite that's really hard for no other reason other than my woke badge and make my kids serve that consequence ever.
Yeah. There's a couple comments up a little higher. Pitt is filmed in Pittsburgh at Allegheny General. Besides the wokeness, it's a good show. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Classic Youngstown attitude. Bye-bye.
See ya.
There's the take my ball and go home. I don't like hearing other views.
Little delicate, sensitive. The show is great and portrays reality. I was just upset that the episode that they said if an employee keeps screwing up, they can end up in Youngstown. They made a Youngstown
Oh,
reference.
I didn't see that episode yet.
What about religious recruitment? That's allowed. Describe a type of gay recruitment. No, culturally, recruiting basically casts something. Like, I'm a pros cons guy. So when I go into the booth to vote, I want to know the people who hate this, why they hate it. The people who love this, why they love it.
Yeah.
And then I'm making an informed decision by saying, what's the pros and cons? Whenever you have, like, if you asked a regular person whether or not culture paints a certain lifestyle, like religious lifestyle, if you ask the normal person, culture has run it through the muck, right? Nobody doesn't know mind control, behavior control, mystic powers, fantasy, fiction. Like, everybody can give you some adjectives about how culture feels about religion. So when somebody recruits, it is taking and putting the pros side. Everybody knows the cons, and then the religious recruiters go out and advocate for the pro side. And then I don't think anybody enters into religion dumbfounded that there are some downsides and upsides to the belief. Even military recruiters, when they go into schools, right? That makes a little bit of sense. I'm still not a huge fan of it because you're taking people, credit card companies that go into college campuses.
Colleges.
These are brains that need parental discussion and consent, and getting to kids before they have the oversight of their parents where they're making big decisions is something that I think is an evil. Now, if you had parent in the room, kid in the room, they could talk about it, they can get all the pros of joining the military, they can get all the cons, but once you attach to a child without the person who is ultimately responsible for them, I have the kind of a rule that influence is, I'll allow something to be influential on me or with me if that thing is with me on both sides of the equation, right? If somebody says, I'm going to sell you the insurance, and when you buy it, I am here and talking to you, and you have my phone number, and I respond at all hours, and after you buy it, if something bad happens, you need to use it, then I'm here for you. I'll explain everything to you. I'm here after hours. That's someone who's there for you on both sides of the equation. Recruitment in this deal is it's almost like a cult where they suck you into boot camp, right? And the person that you talk to at the recruitment facility aren't the people who you're dealing. They were nice and they were cordial and they were over explaining. But once you get sucked into boot camp, you're like, I have a question, right?
Yeah.
The drill instructor is not going to be like, well, yeah, let's sit down and have a heart-to-heart about that. So the person that recruited you behaved and acted in one way, and the people who now you're dealing with are not the sales guy.
Yeah. If you signed on the dotted line and all of a sudden it's like, all right, good luck, I'm out.
Yeah, right.
That's a red flag.
So I call it recruitment because this is sort of like a subtle, below the surface, subconscious type of thing where it's always being painted as a positive and it should be included and it's all peaceful. No downside. Like no one ever talks about all of the costs and consequences. So if your kid enters into something, they find themselves in the middle of boot camp, who is going to be there for their kid to console them when they made a choice based on a salesperson who's going to console them? The parents are then going to have to take care of them after the damage is done. And so if they weren't there on the onset, they can't be there on the outset.
Yeah, like, so Jennifer says that is so ill-informed, dangerous rhetoric. And Jennifer, I'd love to know, why do you think this is dangerous? Because to me, it's dangerous to not talk about this. Like, a child is not allowed to get a tattoo. A child is not allowed to drive a car. A child is not allowed to live on their own. They can't join the military. They can't buy a gun.
Since we talked
But
about
we can do that.
religion feels that way too. It's dangerous to say, well, what if God's not real? So any zealot that is in that, that atheistic, no godlessness, whatever, if your sacred beliefs are challenged, we can't have that. That is considered ultimately dangerous. Because what if a free thinker, roll it out, have the conversations. You're going to have a right and wrong. What if somebody says, hey, I'm considering this idea and I don't like it? Is that on the table? Right? And so with these issues that are all the woke issues, you're not allowed to bring up the details about it because there's cultural repercussions and be made a bigot, a racist, a homophobe. If you just say, hey, maybe it's bad that we take influential people and expose them to things that have nothing to do with the development and the principal development early on.
Yeah.
Is that dangerous?
Like you said, I could, and I have many times gone to a pastor and said, here's something I just read in the Bible and it does not sit right with me. Can we talk about this? Or I think this is contradictory to what you're teaching and what are the parallels here? And there's no defensiveness. There's no upset. They're like, yeah, absolutely why you would think that. Let's talk about it. But for some reason, if there's a question or a concern with this kind of topic, you're automatically a hateful, dangerous person for questioning it. Instead of saying, okay, that's a good point. I could see why you would think that. Here's some research that we've seen, or here, whatever it is. Like there's never allowed to be an open discussion. If I say, I am really concerned about a child making a permanent change to their body that will affect the rest of their lives, and it could be really dangerous. Let's talk about this first. Because like I said, they can't get a tattoo, you can't own a gun, you can't live on your own, you can't drive.
Good reason.
All of that is dangerous for a child to do, but this is not. In fact, it's dangerous to even say maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah.
There's something there.
All dogma will be questioned on this show. Kelin and I have done this from day one. There is nothing that we can't at least dig through and find thoughts and opinions.
Yeah.
And whether you like them or not, that's not my concern at all.
It's just interesting that certain topics you're labeled a hateful person.
That's the control.
Yeah, because if an atheist came to me, and I have friends, close friends that are atheists, and they're like, well, I just don't buy it because of this. I don't think you're a hateful person. You're a good person. Let's talk about it. But no, you can't with this topic.
Because it's delicate. I'm going to look from the perspective of somebody who there were a period of time with blacks and minority groups and gay, lesbian. They've all had this trek, right, where there were dark times where it was tough to be who they were, right? And so the sensitivities and thinking that your movement and what you've accomplished to this point is delicate, that if somebody pulls one rod out of it, that the whole thing just goes back to where the dark times were before. So I understand why you think having conversations about it, because you've established a power and a control over people's minds, right? Where we stop being curious about certain things, stop asking questions because they're unpopular, and it basically just took everybody, reasonable people who don't have those bigotries that you say that they do, and put them in that camp anyway. But the problem with that is that once you're called a racist, homophobe, and a bigot, and you're put there, and it wasn't reasonable to have you there in the first place, now you've ruined the only weapon, right? If I was actually any of those things and I deserved it, it'd be fine. But basically everybody I know is a racist homophobe. So then nobody is a racist homophobe.
Yeah, if you even question it, don't even question, don't say a thing about it other than what they want you to say,
right?
Or you are those
But
things.
yeah, very important topic to keep talking about, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it hurts your feelings. I will, if anybody feels that, the inroads that you have made to be accepted and truly have tolerance, I will be right there with you to protect those things that we've got, right? I'm not for eroding or going back to any time previous today. Thank you. Because I think it's as good as it's ever been right now. We need to build upon that. But the balance of power is shifted, where instead of celebrating where we've gotten to this point, now it turns to tyranny. Now it's thought and control, it's opinion control and punishment if you go off the reservation. So a delicate group that thinks they're going to lose their position and lose the advances that they've made against, like, you're going too far and you're going to make this unpalatable and you're going to suffer a generation in the future that not only wants to be tolerant, you're just an annoying, oppressive force that is making everybody uncomfortable all the time. So reasonable people aren't even going to listen to you. Your influence is dead.
Yeah, and it's so great that, I'm so glad Jennifer is interacting with us this morning, because that's exactly what Jennifer clearly disagrees with this. And that's why it is so important. A comment above said, I don't like this, bye.
Yeah.
Jennifer is like, I don't like this, and here's why. Let's have a conversation. Let's give both viewpoints. That is so important. And Jennifer, we so appreciate you, and anybody, Julie, anybody that disagrees that can say, this is an important topic, so let's discuss it from two different views. That's exactly what we do on this show. And it is important. And Jennifer does say normal person, that's part of the problem. You think anyone thinks in this climate that being gay is easy in any capacity?
When I say normal person, I'm saying biologically normal, right? The influence is outside that. So do I consider a person who likes to play Dungeons and Dragons normal? No. Dungeons and Dragons is not part of the normal biology. What are we? How do human beings behave? When you look at the aggregate, so if I took 10 people and they all had 10 fingers, right? Mm-hmm. And I took another person and I cut off one of their fingers. And I have 10 people that have 10 fingers and one that has one missing finger. I don't then say human beings are all 9-fingered people. I say that normal human beings have 10 fingers. Biologically, they're constructed in a certain way. This one's different, and they're not excluded. They can still participate. They're at a disadvantage because they are now different. So the tolerances really are helping a person who has a missing digit to participate in the same way that people have 10 digits do, without destroying the 10. It's the 10 people, because they're normal, aren't the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's the merging different things. The tolerance is in and teaching people that are different to figure out a way where they don't hate each other, blame each other, make one a scapegoat, oppress the other, and whatnot. So that's the principle. Where there are differences, we have to have disciplines that keep us treating people the same and not giving an advantage to the 9-fingered people, creating a disadvantage with the 10-fingered people.
Yeah. And
Stupid analogy, but you get it.
Feel like sometimes it feels like it's a no-win situation, because if we choose to treat everybody the same, everybody is normal, everybody is on the same level, I come across, and whether it's a race issue and I'm dealing with people of different races all day, whether it's a trans issue and I'm dealing with people who are transgendered or gay or whatever, I will treat you all like I treat anybody. You're a person, they're a person, and I don't treat you any differently. Right. And to me, I'm treating you as a normal person. But then it's like, if you do, you're like not recognizing their differences enough. Like, you have to then talk about why they are either oppressed and need something more, or should be celebrated differently, or should be like, then there always seeps in this little caveat as to, we want to be normal, we want to be like every other person, except we need this, 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 this. And then it's like, wait, are you like any other person, or are you different?
So this is a human nature thing, and we will always do this in any kind of unfair society. Two currencies that we experience are power and money, right? And both of those things, when all things are equal and everybody has the same amount of money and the same amount of power, then everybody figures out how to get along. But if you give one person in a group more money or more power, they behave completely differently. Now you've given them more power. The first thing is to preserve that power, to make sure that somebody doesn't take it away. You then become a target for people who don't have the power that you do, right, to take it away from you. And now you've got fear. So what do? You want to insulate your power and make it so sacred that nobody challenges it. Think of every king throughout history. Think of every government throughout history. Like, they're not going to cede power only to be vulnerable, to be, overtaken by somebody who doesn't have that same power. So I don't blame it. Like, we said, okay, we took a dark time in our history. And what we're going to do is we're not just going, like, the black versus any minority group. Pick any minority group. So those groups had challenges. So the right thing would do, mathematically correct thing would be to do, is to say, oh, this group was at a disadvantage, make them equal to everyone else. But we didn't do that because human nature said, okay, we got to then extend power beyond equal and give power to this group. Well, what do you expect? A power that was a group that was oppressed for a while, given power, you don't think they're going to add more exponents on that power and try to get more of it and insulating it from question, like you can't even talk about it? Those are all methods of human nature that once you have a currency, you go into protection mode. If I gave you $100,000 right now, right, would you just behave normal? Or would you go into currency protection mode where you'd want to, number one, protect what you have.
Yeah.
And number two, you want to make more of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's just human nature.
Yeah, I want to keep it. I don't want to.
But it's not a fair exercise in how we react to having something of value that's different than other people, and want to keep people out of that newly found currency that you came across.
Yeah. Except for the movies where people are murdered and killed because they are who they are. Julie says, do you know a plethora of greedy, evil physicians that want kids to be trans? This is the thing that drives me crazy about conservatives, instill fear about nothing. I'm not saying there is a plethora of greedy, evil physicians that want kids to be trans. I'm saying if there are any, if there's one, if there's two.
Well, this is mathematical theory though, right? Mm-hmm. You can waterfall this out and watch the water as it goes through the canal that you dug. And so picture, let's just take one example, all right? You get a kid who's really normal, playing the role, trying to figure out how to be a human being. They're engaged in social groups, they're interacting with the opposite sex, they're trying to build themselves and how they want to interact with other people. Let's just say that person has a struggle. They're not well liked by their social groups. They're not, adopted or embraced into the opposite sex exchanges. That person's going to be like, I am doing something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So you could picture maybe 25% of the children just do not fit in and they can't find their place, right? So they are actively in the market for an accepting group of people. Enter in an accepting group of people who can be your allies. Now, do you think somebody who's just confused and not fitting in can go to a group where all they can do is adopt all of their things, right? And they can get love and attention and affection. And then all of a sudden, they are part of that group. Not because that's who they are. It's because the one that was embracing and adopting more than any other, and they felt at home and at peace. So the question is, if you roll this through, what do you do with impressionable people that aren't fitting in normal archetypes and normal stereotypes? Do you just allow them to go to places and feel safe and happy? Absolutely. right? But if you figure out, and this is where the aggregate evil comes in more than nefarious individual doctors. I don't think doctors are on purpose trying to do it. I think they're open to it. They're more empathetic than most people. They're more likely to be on the liberal side. And if their industry is pro one thing and anti other things, they won't do the thing and they will do the thing. And so if they're willing to participate in it, they don't object to doing it unless they're doing harm to someone, which it's hard to make that argument that ushering somebody into hormone or physical change to their body would be harm if it's culturally accepted as not having been done harm.
There actually are more and more lawsuits coming out of the woodwork, too, that we're hearing about of people who are now suing medical professionals for transitioning someone.
Yeah,
and
they went too far.
Yeah.
They went too far. And they hurt some people who were in that group of vulnerable that went to the group and participated, and they did damage to themselves, and they'll sue for it. So then in your group, instead of saying, well, we don't talk about it because it's really hard on our cause, let's try to keep those people out of the machine, right? Reserve it for the people.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think once we started talking about this, we had, millions of people that got interested, joined those groups, and you think they're all in that state? Do you think they're naturally gay, lesbian, transgender? There was a social contagion. You can't argue against that. And I want to eliminate the social contagion part. If I had a bunch of people that went to boot camp and they weren't ready for it, and our recruitment was too hardcore because we were putting people who absolutely didn't belong in there, and they end up, I'm going to try to engineer it so I give them reasons not to go there because it was a real damage, a waste of time, and it wasn't who I picture. But if you want to get a lot of recruits, then you don't care about the 40 of them that never should have made it past the recruiter.
And I did, to Julie's point, I did say, yes, I'm concerned about greedy, concerned doctors doing it. And I don't think that doesn't exist. But for example, like if an 8-year-old girl went to a physician and was like, I would like a breast augmentation. I want bigger boobs. And you would think the doctor would be like, you're 8. Don't know if that's necessary right now. I know I am secure in this decision. I would like a breast augmentation and I want bigger boobs right now. You're not done growing yet. And are you sure you're able to make this decision? You would hope there's a little pushback there. There's a little concern.
See, I don't think so.
If the doctor said, all right, what size do you want to be and when should we schedule this? Would you at all be a little like, what the hell?
No, I think somebody who practices a specialty should not be in the business of influencing those decisions. That is not their job and role. You know what their job is? To do whatever their responsibility. There should be obstacles before that moment where people who have, some kind of investment in that person that has those conversations, and you go to the specialist to get data. Right? I'll get data from you, but I don't care if you do it or don't do it.
Like, have the parents weighed in? Has a psychologist weighed in? Have other professionals weighed in? Or is this just a kid off the street like do this?
Not professionals, because professionals have no business. Like, a teacher shouldn't be giving lectures to kids about how they think they should be living their lives.
Well, you're saying, okay, so you're saying you don't trust that a professional won't just jump on board with them.
Okay. You have to take it both ways. Would you want a professional that was an activist to get in someone's head and control the other side?
No, that's what I'm saying, is you got to trust the professional. You can't think the professional's in the same ship.
But you're asking them to make a decision for someone who they only have a snippet of 0.05% of everything, the implications of doing the thing. You don't want that person deciding whether or not you should or shouldn't. You want advisors who grandparents, parents, friends, people who know you in and out that can say hard things. Now, if I'm a kid, and why would a kid not want to tell their parents that they feel like they're in the wrong body and want to change genders? Why wouldn't they ask their parents?
They think it'll upset them.
Because they might say no. They might shame. They might put doubt in that. They might change the trajectory, right? Now, why would they go to a doctor? Because a doctor culturally is more likely to give in to those behaviors. So they're going to the person that's going to confirm what they feel, not the person who's going to give real data. Like if a doctor sat there and gave you all the pros and cons and made you feel bad in these ways and made you feel good in these ways, and then you made an informed decision, cool. But I think I want specialists to stay in their effing lane and let everybody outside of that cooperate with that person to help them make a good decision, even if it means saying really hard things are going to hurt their feelings, things are going to make the question whether or not. And that's why I have no faith in psychology, I have no faith in MD medical, because all they are is captured by ideology rather than, being data driven. You're not even going to like me, and I'm not going to even have bedside manner, but I'm going to give you all the data that you need. So if you ask a question, should I do this? It should not be yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't. It should be like, here's the 3 reasons that most people blah, 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 and here's the 3 pieces that people regretted on the other side.
Yeah.
Now you tell me after I've given you the data. But taking that data and filtering it through a person like that you trust and knows you and is there to pick up the pieces if you make a bad decision and help celebrate with you when you make a good decision, those are the most important relationships that don't exist.
Yeah. You're assuming that is the first step without knowing the process. I don't remember what we're assuming. Sorry, we probably moved on from something we said. The problem is that blanket saying this should not happen. The problem is that blanket saying this should not happen also disregards the child's feelings and emotion, which ends up in emotionally damaged and often suicidal children.
Well, kids are, think about them as a firecracker, right? They have the potential to disintegrate at any moment. And you have to be delicate with being a parent, because there are all kind of chemicals going through a kid's brain. So this gentle parenting where we don't want to upset our children because they're not going to like us and they're going to get mad about it and we're going to cause emotional damage. Doing it and not doing it both have cost and consequences. And
yes.
Which one causes more problems and not? So this isn't like one is good and one is bad, right? It is a delicate balance that parents play to be have enough principles and rules, right? And have just enough wisdom without being a tyrant, right? And indoctrinating and kids need to learn how to think. That's their biggest skill. Now, if all you do is dictate to the kid how to think and feel, they don't know the premise, they don't know why they're doing things and whatnot. And so they end up just being a clone of your ideals that you didn't tell them how you arrived there. And so they can't process it. So once they leave you, they get emotionally scarred and they consider suicide and they hurt themselves and they make lots of poor decisions, because then the dependence that you created by not teaching them how to think, they have to use a skill set that they absolutely don't have.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there is a child stating to be suicidal, you have a much larger problem than them wanting a surgery. That is something then to me would be like, hold up, now I'm definitely not doing anything drastic until we discuss this further or seek other help. I lost my train of thought. What was she just saying? Not taking their feelings into consideration. I totally lost my train of thought there. But yeah, I think you can still take feelings into consideration. You can take what they want. But it is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not emotional. It's a fact. The child's brain is not done growing.
Right.
There are reasons children are not allowed to make legal decisions, binding decisions, decisions about their health care. And it's also a fact that there have been and are still lawsuits where somebody was changed and regrets it. And now they are more unwell than had nothing happened. It does happen. So if that does happen, if people have been shown to regret this and medical professionals are being sued for this, I don't care how small that is. I don't know how large or small that population is. But that should give you pause to say, we are going to explore this from all angles before we do anything. It should make it more of a discussion, not less of a discussion. Not, well, you shouldn't say anything because this is going to make the child feel like they're unheard and they're going to be upset. Well, yeah, they're going to be upset and unheard for a lot of things in life. But this is a big deal. And as a parent, quite often, even when you see your child hurting, you can't just give in because you are still protecting them.
Yeah, but we make a lot of assumptions that our kids are in this fully formed brain and have this adult body, so we're pushing information in the same way. Like I've seen, I have a 16-year-old, and the things in his world that upset him and throw him way off kilter and make him a bad decision maker are not things in an adult world that would even matter. Like you shift up who sits at a lunch table, or who didn't talk to you, or I got a stain on my pants, or my hair wasn't just right and I found out about it later. These are all things that affect them so much. Like if my hair's not right, or I get a stain on my pants, or the lunch table changed, I don't give two shits, because I've created coping mechanisms to get through things that were, something that was an obstacle or made me feel bad or wasn't actually perfect. And I figured out a way to still behave appropriately in spite of all those things.
Yeah.
In a kid's world, they are that firecracker that they can explode at every minute over something that's really trivial because they don't have the skills to process that information. So when you tell me you're going to put a really life-changing decision in front, I'm going to ask, like, well, what mode were they in? Were they in the I had a stressful day mode and I'm not going to make any good decisions? Were they in the I'm lazy and apathetic mode? Like, there's 50 different places. And where would I set a life-changing decision in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, take just an average everyday female of any age. And I'm sorry, ladies, but hormones can really do a number on you, on your personality, on your way of thinking, on how you feel, on how you see things. How many times have I seen my own child, even myself, act completely differently depending on a hormone cycle versus when those hormones calm down? You see things totally differently than you did in the height of this. You would have reacted differently. You would have considered other options that you couldn't even see when you were in the height of that. It's a natural process for a female to go through a very significant change. Can you imagine taking those hormones that are firing like crazy for maybe a couple of days and making the biggest decision of your life, knowing in a few more days, I may not even be that same person?
Yeah. My kid has to take 2 tests to get into MIT, right? Should take when he's a senior. He's taking them and contemplating them his sophomore year. And these are hardcore tests. These are ones that I know he could do. And I want to pitch it to him in a way that he's going to have to take another couple tests if he's really serious about this. Now, me as a parent, I can influence what happens here. If I want him to say no, right, I'm going to wait to a day where he's really stressed out. I'm going to be like, hey, there's 2 tests you have to take to get an MIT. And I'm just going to I really don't want MIT anymore. I'll go to somewhere easier. If I want him to say yes, then I can have on a day where he's at a high, where he got his ACT scores back and he's like, I'm smart as can be and I can freaking do this. I put the question on him that day. How is it if as an influencer, as a parent, I know I can get whatever answer I want out of him by just waiting till his chemical balance is in a certain spot, and I can predict the outcome.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a daughter, and she is in puberty. And there are instances where there is a freaking Tyrannosaurus Rex running through our house screaming because she can't find her hair tie or something.
Right. Those trivial things.
And we look at each other, and I said, just give it a couple days. Don't even, like, you're like diffusing an active bomb. We cannot win here. And then after a couple days, I'm like, do you realize how much of an apology you owe everybody in this house now that you see what just occurred?
If you wanted to test this, let's just say you have a 14-year-old girl who says, total tomboy, says, I'm in the wrong body and I want to be a boy, right? Big decision. You have a conversation about it. What I would do before I do a life-altering thing is I would test it out. Let your kid make a real-world decision in a less complex, less, life-altering way, and see how they do. See if there was contemplation, and see if they did planning and preparation. See if they did introspection. Have conversations, and see how much of an academic pursuit this was. If they get to the end of that, and they're like, oh, I just got an adult living in a kid's body, they are formed in a way where they know how to make decisions and how to think through things. I would take that more serious than if I would never in a million years let my kid plan a trip and have it be anything that anybody would want to experience, but they're going to alter their body or make a life decision. Does not.
That's kind of like I've heard people say with when people are dating and they're thinking about getting married. I've heard wait until you have at least one fight or disagreement. See how that works out before you get married. See how you can
you test it out. Absolutely.
Yeah, how you can get through things.
I know of a whole lot more people who will not tolerate or accept any differences than others. Those are the ones who need change. But that is inspire people. Like, you don't get to control people. Any thoughts they have are theirs, and you have no business in there. You can inspire people to be different if you give them a benefit of good behavior, right? And so I know Democrats want to control the thoughts and minds of people, but you have to be appealing in what you're presenting. I think it's cultural's job. How do you change culture? There's only one way. You pay the consequences of punishing bad behavior, and you give massive benefit to good behavior. You don't reward bad things, and you get less of it. Yeah. You give reward to good things, and you get more of it. That's really the only deal. So if you have someone that is not tolerant, right, and you want them to be more tolerant, you have to give me the benefits. So what do I get for being more tolerant? If I become tolerant, was there a big payoff? Like, do you treat me different? Do you give me a reward, a badge, and whatever? Or I become tolerant, I did what you say, and now you're still in that same boat. I'm not going to treat you any different. You're still an asshole. You haven't come far enough, whatever. And that's how you get culture that you're going to have just like the labor union curve, right? Everybody who exists today are benefits of religious impression on our culture. You have people who are behaving Jesus-like and Christian-like, right, because of their upbringing. Once those generations take that wisdom out of culture, you're going to be left with that secularist, like, self-serving deal, and now you have your tyranny. And we're only probably 2 generations or 1.5 generations away from our culture to be all transactional and binary in that respect. It's going to be a bad time in our future if we don't reintroduce actual principles that are not self-serving but are selfless.
That's when AI is going to take over.
Hopefully. That's my saving grace.
Penny Lane says, I treat everyone the same as a typical white person mentality by not acknowledging systemic inequality. You're just continuing it. You have to acknowledge privilege first.
No, you don't. You can decide. Whatever happened through today, if I'm like, today, I'm just going to treat everybody equally. So if I'm nice to everybody, I'm going to be nice to everybody. If I'm mean to everybody, I'm going to be absolute equal.
That's what I'm saying is I feel very contradicted. I feel like there's a no-win where it is treat everyone the same, respect everyone, let them live their own life, be a kind person is like not good enough. Like, but you have to acknowledge a systemic inequality. What if I don't see one? Or maybe there was one and I want to work to fix that.
Everybody would
and then it gets fixed.
Everybody would buy into systemic inequality fixes if they were universal. We are okay with some systemic inequalities when it benefits us. And in this, agnostic, atheist, secular world, right? It's about what I'm getting out of it. Right?
Yeah.
And so do you think being a good person is a detriment, or do you think it's a virtue?
I think it's a virtue.
It's a detriment.
Being a good person?
Being a good person is a detriment.
That's a virtue.
It is a detriment.
Okay. How's it a detriment?
So is it easier to buy or steal?
Easier probably to steal.
Okay, unless you have punishment so great that it's something.
I was going to say, unless you get caught, then it's definitely not easy.
Okay, so thinking that you are in a country that can underpin virtues ahead of self-serving vices, right, is a fool's errand. It really is. There's no way to get people who won't exploit a situation, a relationship, whatever, because that's part of human nature. So what hems in people and makes them behave better than they should? Reward. It has to be a reward. So if you do this, you're going to go to heaven. Heaven's pretty good, and so go ahead and do this. That's the ultimate reward, and make it theocracy or make it mystical or whatever. If you put a carrot in front, you'll chase. when you say acknowledging systemic, so I'm a data guy. So acknowledging, what does that mean?
Or even acknowledging privilege.
So what does that mean? Engineer is going to have a different answer than empath. What does that mean?
I would think it's show understanding, empathy, respect to the fact that somebody was oppressed or treated differently, and you're not because of benefits you were given. So acknowledge the difference. Recognize it. Show respect to. I think.
Okay. Yeah, two things that come. Number one, when you walk into the room and the king is on his throne and he has his scepter and his cape and all that, you will kiss his ring. You have to acknowledge the king and not just know that he's king in your spare time. When you walk into the room, you have to kiss the ring to show that you are loyal to the cause of the king, and he has to know it, and he has to feel that he has your support, right? We're a no kings kind of country, and we don't bow to anything. So ideals and principles and ideologies, we have a chance every day that we wake up and decide to go along with an ideal or principle because it benefits us, or reject it, and nobody's going to stop me. So if I want to say, I do not care about equity at all. It is the boogeyman in the room. I don't care about righting wrongs. What I care about is actual definitional equality. So engineer kicks into my brain, and if I'm solving a problem, what is the end of something? To what end are we engineering something?
Yeah.
How do we fix something? Are we fixing something to make sure there's more damage? So if you said people who take student loans 40 years in the future are saddled by debt and it crushes their life. So I'm an engineer. So how do you... Engineer's going to say, well, I have to stop doing student loans. And that way I've solved the problem of a person being crippled. And then you say, well, if you don't give a student loan, then they can't get an education, right? So then engineer snaps into that position and says, let's solve that problem. But if you want to just take a non-thinker's version of it, what we do is we put a little Band-Aid on what makes us feel bad. Doesn't really solve the problem. It makes somebody feel better about it. But because it was a short-term fix, you have to constantly put the Band-Aid back on. You never really fix it. You just put another Band-Aid. So if I made a statement today that I am sorry for every European that did bad things in United States forever. Done. I hit the button. You know I apologize. I acknowledge.
We put measures in place to make sure we don't do it again.
Does that mean now I never have to apologize it because I'm not going to ever revisit it? I'm not going to ever make that mistake. No one else is going to make that mistake. My apology is ended, right? Or is there going to be a, Joe, you're not acknowledging it? So now there are stipulations on what I have to do. Like I walk in the room and I have to kiss the ring. Even though I kissed the ring 9 times already, I got to kiss the ring because it's more about showing you have the power, and me kissing the ring to a repledged loyalty of my guilt.
Like if I'm treating someone like I would treat anyone else. For example, I have a really good friend of mine. All through middle school, through high school, we were close. She came out after we graduated. Okay, she is now married to a transgendered person. They go by they, them. Okay, and when we hang out, I am respectful. You are my friend. I have love for you. If your partner is they, them, I will say they, them. Like, everybody gets along and shows respect and doesn't cause beef. So it feels like, and Penny Lane, you can chime in too. You maybe. We'll have to get to some other comments, but why is that not good enough? Like, what, like you said, what more do I need to do?
But that's the human nature. That is I've created power where you're beholden to me. You will kiss my ring. And my fear that you're no longer loyal to me to make me kiss your ring again.
Yeah, like I'm not acknowledging something.
That is the accumulation of a power that you got that one slid in, and you got someone to apologize once. So now it's an effective strategy to keep you beholden to that person by repeating that process. That's why when I hit the button, I'm not off the hook. I'm going to have to be, explain and apologize sometime in the future because that power erodes because it's unnatural. It's inauthentic.
Yeah. Jerry.
They are all around excessive knowledge of Joe. Wait, the all around excessive knowledge of Joe is amazing. Well, this is a compliment. I'm going to read that 3 times. And the ability for the both of you is refreshing as compared to other talk shows. You both are able to agree or agree to disagree, and that's why it works so well. Yes, it's your show, but neither of you have an arrogance that most hosts have. That's why I listen and participate. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Very complimentary.
We appreciate
we do
you.
go a lot of avenues. Like, there are a lot of things that we can talk about in a way,
Yeah.
and we make it simple.
We
Like,
talk
that's
about the
funnest part.
scary stuff that's only scary because you get pushback when you talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's completely healthy to
Yeah.
do what we do. Treating everyone the same and treating everyone fairly are different things. Nope, not definitionally.
Penny Lane, do you have maybe like an example, or maybe give us like some specifics as to what you mean by these things, and we'll read those too.
Yeah, so the best phrasing is like the equity versus equality, the fair versus equal, right? It's skewed in this culture to say that participation, like if everybody has the chance of doing something, equal opportunity for all people, not equal outcome for all people, because
Yeah.
there are smart people, there are dumb people, short people and tall people, like we're all different.
Talented,
so the
not
opportunity,
talented
if
in
I
certain things.
jam myself on an NBA court, right, and I was given the opportunity to audition, I have no chance whatsoever to be accepted. But if you had an equity, if you had 5'4" white guys that can barely jump and can only do 3-point shots, right? If you had an equity, it would mean that, well, I would have to be forced on the court to be participating in something when I can easily go to a different territory. And what I think in this fairness one, you ever see the baseball game, the fence, and you had 3 different sized people, and you had equality where they all had the opportunity to look over the fence and watch the game.
Sounds
but
familiar.
the short person, so we gave 2 crates to one and 1 crate to the other and no crates to the other one. It's because the opportunity, or the equal outcome, was that they can all see. If that's your purpose, is all they see. So the opportunity equality was they all were there, but only one of them
Yeah.
could see, and we had to give them something that we didn't give to somebody else, and then to take the outcome. Well, we have free will, and we can choose to be in different, on different fields. So I might be trying to force myself to be on the NBA court when I could have been spending my time being involved over here, where who I was and what I liked and what my physical attributes were lined up where I'd have a higher rate of success.
Yeah. Jennifer, emotional well-being and mental state is a far cry from simple physical augmentation.
I just don't trust the, I don't trust medical or people who are specialists in this area to be unbiased when you gather the data. So if you had sciences and what was supposed to be data driven, if you get empaths who are allowed to have emotional angles on things, you're going to get skewed data, because you're going to be like, yeah, we damaged you, but you're happy. Right? We jammed something through your arm and it made you really happy, but nobody who can objectively say that was a good decision, that aren't going to cause complications in other departments. Your happiness was not paramount to the damage that you've done. And I think a lot of professionals they're too skewed on what makes you feel good rather than what's good for you.
Julie, there are strict rules on performing surgery on minors. Parental or guardian permission is required. Well, yes.
Yeah, any elective surgery on a minor should be banned. There should be any. There really should.
Yeah, like Julie I don't know if Julie's got maybe family members or nieces, nephews, grandchildren, whatever. If a child that you care about, that you love, happens to be raised by parents that said, you know what, I'm totally fine, I'm going to go ahead and give my 7-year-old a breast augmentation, would you be like, hold up, wait a minute, can we please discuss this? Or would you simply say, well, she's got parental permission, I'll go ahead and support this? Like, you don't have to support it. You can still think it's wrong, and it's not your decision. It is the parents'. But it feels like in this day and age, you are now required to support it. You can't say, hold up. You can't say, I don't really agree with this. You can't say, wait a minute. just because the parents are okay with it doesn't mean this is a good idea. Have you not considered all these other things first? No. Sometimes our culture feels like they want to do it, I support it too. And that's just not the case. That's not realistic, and I don't think that's very safe.
So if, let's just say I sent my kid down to the corner store and I wrote on a piece of paper, hey, sell my kid a pack of smokes and give them a 40 of whatever, right? So you have parental confirmation that you're totally cool with the smoking and drinking of your 14-year-old. Now, you might be making bad decisions, but you got parental consent. But now you're taking a professional who is the clerk at this store. Are they going to do the thing that they don't agree with? They should be giving this stuff, because how do we know that they really wrote it? How do we know that they really have compliance? How do we know that the permission was done and approved by someone who has brain, a couple of neurons in their brain?
No sales to a minor, period?
Yeah, so if the
parent says okay.
If the parent does it, grabs the smokes and beer and comes home and deliver it, fine. So parents then are only open, right, to what they can deliver as their specialty. So you want to get a boob job on it, parent has to do it. That way we know that we didn't have to make a professional that's outside that sphere participate in something that, you could get sued for later, that could be life-altering, it could do damage to that kid. Because in all instances of giving them a tattoo, giving them a piercing, selling them things they shouldn't have, we do that for a reason, because neither parents nor children can make good decisions when it comes to what the after effects of that thing could do. So, involving a professional would be to me,
I think there's a lot more guidelines that should be in place than just simply, like you said, a parent said it's okay. Like, will not sell to a minor, period, regardless if the parent says it's okay. This I know is an extreme example in the opposite direction, but do you know how many young children are trafficked by their parents?
Yeah.
Parents said it's okay. Doesn't make it okay. There are rules and laws against that. So to me, just because a parent comes in and says it's okay to do this extremely potentially dangerous, detrimental, life-altering thing to a child, I'm still going to be like, I need to know what other precautions we have taken first. I need to know the thought process, the research that went into this. I need to know that every measure has been taken to explain the gravity of this situation. And maybe it has. Okay. But if it hasn't, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. and this is a tough topic, because we're talking a lot of theory, and we're depending on industries that are captured by ideology rather than math. So it's really tough to wade through it. And my example was as stupid as you can get. The theory was there, but it was kind of stupid. Think about it this way. All right, say something else, because I'm going to think through this one real quick.
Do you want me to read Jennifer's comment?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Jennifer says, the fact that it happened should give you pause, not immediate reactivity like what is happening right now. Statistically, the religious community is responsible for more SAs than any other community in masses, but I didn't see anyone, but I didn't see anyone running to demand laws requiring mental evaluations and background checks. But I'm a little confused. Mental evaluations and background checks for the religious community?
I don't quite understand.
I don't know either. I don't know if we follow you, Jennifer. Statistically, religious community is responsible for more assaults than any other community in masses. I don't. Okay. I didn't see anyone running to demand laws requiring mental evaluations and background checks. Are you talking about mental evaluations and background checks for who? For religious leaders? Is that what you mean? I mean, I had to do a background check to serve in my church in the kids area. I wasn't allowed to just go and take care of kids. I had to do a background check. I had to do all kinds of stuff.
Well, with us, again, statistics mean a lot. And, sort of like the logic is that if an organization is made up of people, and people are flawed and have impulses and do bad things, then every organization has bad people that do bad things. Okay, so as long as you can, if you make an organization with no people, then you're free of that. There's no solving that, right? Now, if you have an organization that allows that or promotes that behavior, then you have an evil organization. Now, the Catholic Church, for instance, they have a misbehaving priest. Something bad happens to a kid. They fear branding, that they're going to be news headlines that a priest, dawdles a young boy. Bad for the church. So the church moves that bad person, lets them be part of the organization, and hurt somebody else. Okay? So I can separate and say the church in philosophy and wisdom is very good. The people practicing it and the organizations who are the banner bearers can be bad, and nobody should tolerate it. So the Catholic Church, when they behave badly and it makes the news, their credibility is diminished and their brand is diminished. That is the punishment for bad behavior. So I can't condemn church because they are willing, at least now, to be able to out themselves and to fix their problems, when maybe 30 years ago, they were really unwilling to do that. And I can call that spade a spade. Now, if you have a badly behaving, name another group that, liberals love. We'll just say Epstein Island, right?
Not that liberals love Epstein Island.
No.
That came out wrong.
Not at all.
Julie's like, you mother. That came out wrong.
And so if point to any big group, and do you think you have a corrupted person doing corrupted things?
Yeah.
100% certainty. So I'm super interested in what do you do to mitigate that risk of people operating without embezzling money or hurting people or, going off on their own and going rogue. Well, you have a structure that tries to ferret that out, not meaning that it'll never happen, but it'll be something that you're self-contained. Your organization is in absolute control of it. The Catholic Church corrupted because it had all the power and it had all the money, and so it went way far in the other direction where it thought it was untouchable and it thought it could operate outside of laws, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if I'm willing to hold the Catholic Church to that standard, then you have to be also willing to hold that same standard to your set of groups. And reasonable people, no matter who we're looking at or focused on, will hold them both to the equal standards of behavior in culture.
Yeah. She says, I'm talking about the reactivity to possibly one or two minors having life-altering surgeries causing law changes immediately before research was properly done. The equal side of large amounts of trauma being caused by the religious community caused no law changes, not even a discussion, the simple pay of the victims and move along.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things. We're talking about an individual's choice to do that on purpose, and the Catholic Church's purpose is not to assault anyone. All right. So in the bylaws, it's not part of their handbook. This was an individual who was misbehaving, and if anybody knew about it, they would condemn it. Right. There would be nobody proud of it. Now we're talking about parents that on purpose that are super proud about what they're doing, causing an injury that causes an individual from hurting another person by doctrine. Right. This isn't an accidental transgender surgery. This is an on purpose thing, and they will tell everybody about it. That's the difference between the two.
Yeah, Julie says, I have friends that wanted bariatric surgery. They were adults and still required 1 year of nutrition and mental evaluation before surgery would be performed. Yeah. I knew a girl, this was years ago, but she was 30, I believe, at the time, and just told her doctor she wanted a hysterectomy because she never wanted kids. And the doctor said no. He's like, I won't do it. You are too young. And she's like, I'm telling you, I'm confident in my decision. I don't ever want children. I want a hysterectomy. And he's like, I don't care. You're too young to make that decision. You could change your mind, and I will not do something that permanent. Would you have said good decision or dumb doctor, find another one?
It's tough because they're playing a role that I don't want them playing with in to begin with. But Jennifer said, talking about the reactionary impact and legality. In the church, the things they were doing were already illegal. You don't have to change a rule. What they were doing was breaking the effing law.
They're breaking it, but it's not like the
already
law's
have
not there.
Laws, but an organization was corrupted, where the thing that somebody should have been prosecuted and jailed for, you had payoffs and you had people just being moved from parishes to parishes. They skirted the law. The laws already exist for things that were happening. So you don't need a reactionary new law to underpin something that already exists.
They'll just break that one.
You just need a transparency where churches aren't allowed to operate any other way than a company or a government or whatever. You have to have transparency in what they're doing. And when somebody flags something as something illegal, someone goes to prison for it, period.
Yeah. Yeah, really, it's the corruption of how it's handled once the law is broken. It's not that it needs a law.
Right. So if you think, like, let's just say there's a mass shooting and it's a white guy, and immediately you see the headlines, white guy does a mass shooting. And then you have maybe a minority group that was the person, either a Muslim or a black guy or transgendered. You watch the headline corrupt the information that could be known, right?
Yeah.
But they were able to take something like the church and take something that would undermine, their activist behaviors and kind of hide something from you. There's no different. Each is corruption. If you corrupt the information, it could be known because it would be bad for you. And if you could hide information because it would be bad for you, that is both corruption in my eyes.
Wasn't there recent headlines, the shooter in, was it Canada? There was a trans person. Yeah. And some headlines said, first female mass shooter ever.
Who is a conservative.
And then somebody else said, wait. This is a biological male who was trans to female.
Right.
So that does kind of change the headline. So it's interesting to see what the headline is and how it is
corruption of information where they put it in language, the media put it in language that went congruent to the narrative, right? If it hurts one group, they explicitly spell out what's going on. If it hurts one of their favorite, then they kind of like mask it a little bit.
Yeah, they word it totally differently. They give a they paint a picture, really.
Yeah.
What picture do we want painted?
So again, to reiterate, equality versus equity is the news should be just data. No matter what it is, you just put what the thing is. Equity would mean that, well, you have this dynamic, this favorite group over here, and we need to be harder on this group than other ones. So they're different treatment between different groups means that headlines get published different depending on who you are, not equality where all headlines get published exactly how they happen.
Yeah. Jennifer says, but no outcry for the need to create a law as a preventative measure. What kind of law would you like to see, Jennifer? Because, I mean, it's against the law to assault a child, whether it's in church, whether it's at a restaurant or in the street. Like, it's against the law to assault a child.
Yes.
That law's in place, blanketed.
And to hide information for a crime is also against the law. So if you covered it up or obscured it.
So I would say there is outcry. Nobody wants a child to be harmed, especially by an authority figure that is meant to be influential and have guidance and protect someone in that way. Yeah, that's horrific, but I wouldn't say there's no law against it. What kind of law do you want passed that you think will prevent it, other than just saying it's against the law? Jennifer says, mental screening for anyone who interacts with children, religious or otherwise. And again, like I'm not a priest, but if I am working in the church and serving in the daycare area one Sunday, I did have to have a background check and I had to provide information. Again, I don't know if that is not a thing. I think there is some screening involved, but
yeah, if I go to a school, do a book reading, like I have background checks and I have to be monitored. So yeah, I think.
How about your wife as a teacher?
Same thing. Background checks, make sure there's no psycho, mental stability, crimes committed, the whole thing matters.
Yeah.
So this leads to a point where I can go with the philosophy that any person that interacts with children has to have a level of permitting, level of licensure where they will not do damage to that child and do things that the standards would not tolerate from anyone who is not their family to actually do. So all schools should adhere to that. All churches should adhere to that. Anytime a kid leaves the house, families have to have faith that no one on the outside of the house will do damage to their kids psychologically, emotionally, skewing them, indoctrinating them, recruiting them, any of that. It's off limits.
Yeah, I mean,
Apply it
and
universally.
this is why we have mental health professionals, is because clearly people get away with breaking these laws and breaking these guidelines. People get hurt, and that's why there are counselors and therapists. If it were just make the law and it'll never happen, that's not the world we live in. Julie says there are laws except for the elite.
She is not wrong.
I was
there.
saying you're
She
not
is
wrong,
not
especially
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the public is treated one way, and if you hold that power and you trade some of that power, the favors. I watch a lot of shows, and it gives me a lot of insight in how things probably really work in those areas. And you would hope that you had all Ned Starks, all virtuous heroes of every story. But if it's power, you watching Beast Games, by the way?
Beast Games?
Beast Games, yeah. My
No.
kid got me watching the show. Mr. Beast has these competitive games.
Oh, I've heard of this,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it.
And so the players in this last episode, they were given a bunch of money, around $100,000 each. And they had 10 players, and they need to whittle down to 6 players. And they put them in a booth, and all they could do is they take whatever they have at their disposal, and they try to get the other 10 players to vote for them. And they could use persuasion, emotional blackmail, the money that they have, and they can bribe people to do it and to be able to get voted in. So if the end is to consume more power, you use resources that are at your disposal. I mean, watch these kids buy their way into getting voted. The better ones got there, and the other ones, they ended up losing, right?
Wow.
So in these environments in government, if you don't think horse trading and using emotional blackmail and using physical money bribes and whatever, if you don't think we're being managed by all of those same people who are like, hey, I'll do this thing for you if you do this thing for me in the future, calling it a marker, right? It happens all the time. So all the laws in the world that we don't have that ability, right?
Yeah.
But they do, because they have something to offer in the way of power. So, hey, if you vote for this bill, I'll vote for your bill. Now, that's a corruption, right? You made a trade. You're allowed to do it. It's completely legal. But now I can get creative and find out how many other things. Hey, I'll vote for you on this if you do X, Y, Z. Doesn't have to be a vote anymore. I can call in a favor in a completely different department. So you got everybody that governs us owed favors to everyone else.
Or how about if one does manage to actually get sentenced to any jail or prison time, but they are elite, they're in a whole other type of facility than anyone else that got sent to prison.
Yep. That is
They're
inequality.
like basically in their own apartment.
100%.
And they just can't leave it.
Jen says, I'm not saying I want a law necessarily. I am making the comparison that the minority group was immediately jumped on for a few bad players. Yeah, and they should be jumped on. Both examples should be jumped on. There should be outcry. And I think maybe the silo you're in, it didn't feel like there was outcry, but there was, in my realm, like there's not a tolerance for those kind of behaviors, especially, and I know it's not systemic, but if you got to, we had one guy, and two examples that are very similar. We had one guy within the church that got access to accounting, stole a bunch of money from one of the funds that were supposed to be feeding or helping someone, and he did it for about a year. There was a lot of trust and faith that everybody was going to behave appropriately, but he decided to take and help himself to some of the funds. It was found out, and everyone in the church condemned him universally. There wasn't a person who was like, oh, his bad position or making excuses. It was 100% condemnation, because when pastors are at the pulpit, they're preaching every day behaviors of keeping yourself hemmed in, making sure you behave, make sure you help other people. And so that was a contradiction in all of the belief system that's everybody in that congregation. Maybe publicly you didn't have a lot of normie people. Most of the people who were on the normal view, they jumped the Catholic Church and used the examples of bad behavior every chance they get because they hate religion so much. So I would say it's worse, right, from the secularists who want to take aim at the Catholic Church versus like, it's not in unison. Not everybody's going to jump on he murdered a bunch of people because he's transgender kind of thing.
Yeah, like don't jump on the cause just because someone you wanted to go down got
your
theirs.
Group. It feels like it's volumes higher when it's your group getting pounced on, but I'm telling you, it is pretty universal.
Julie says, my husband was a plumber. He had to go through background checks to work in schools.
100%. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah. When again, statistically, this major issue that tops the political discussion impacts less than 1% of the overall population, but is easy to garner support for.
Yeah, in the principle of if it bleeds, right? What's the media line? If it bleeds, it sells, or bleeds, it leads, right?
If it bleeds, it leads.
So if I put a car crash in front of you and everybody paid attention to it, like I would be annoyed that of all of the fantastic things in our world, that's the one that's getting your attention right now, and you're oogling it. And
you're like that with Nancy Guthrie's mom.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
It's a big deal in principle, but who we choose to be outraged over and what we choose to have fascination in annoys the shit out of me.
Well, and again, because when we started this conversation, we were told this is a very dangerous thing to say. But then when we back it up with reasons as to why we feel that way, then we're told this is such a minority thing. It's not even worth discussing. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, but wait a minute. You just said it was incredibly dangerous and people become suicidal over this topic. But then it's, but there are worse things. That's such a small population. People aren't. No, you're either worried about harming children or you're not. There are lots of instances where children might be harmed and different instances that increase and decrease the chance of a child being harmed. So you either discuss that or you don't. And this is another one of those where I feel like there's no pleasing someone that just wants to push back.
But there are certain things that are very unpopular to say about explaining why things are the way they are. And if I'm not afraid to say, like, I want to, I want everybody to pursue happiness. I want everybody to find whatever their happiness is and what makes them fulfilled, right? Which means that as an engineer, I'm going to look through behaviors and where your voids are and if you have disease and whatever. So if I suggest it and I say, we have a bunch of kids that are all of a sudden, through social contagion or otherwise, that they are born in the wrong body, right? And I say, well, let's make sure that they don't have some kind of mental disorder or mental void, right? If I were to suggest that, that means that somehow they're broken. That is not normal.
I'll say they're broken or wrong.
But me, I want people to be safe. So there are people that have had pursuits. They did it for the absolute wrong reasons, and I want to make them safe where they didn't go into something and not be able to handle the choices they just made. And I want to encourage them to have more thought about it, or at least insulate them from those, that decision. And so if I were like, okay, well, we have a bunch of, we'll say 1% of the transgender community is just mentally defective, right? They only did it because they're following some impulses that are not healthy.
They don't truly feel that way, but you're talking about outside social groups are making or influencing them?
They are dangerous. Like the 1% of them are absolutely dangerous. We're catering into their impulses. We've given them power to be, to fly under the radar because now this woke, badge
like
of honor
JoJo
is on it.
Siwa, like she
Sort of.
she was gay and dating females, and now she's engaged and marrying a man, and everybody said, what gives? And she said, I felt very encouraged to be gay, like I should be.
Right. And with healthy, normal people, that expression doesn't affect anyone else. But someone showing up at a hockey game and ending their family and some other people, right? That was a person that went through it, got the cover of putting the robe of a social cause on them, and somehow they were less questioned for their mental capacity than someone who wouldn't have done that. So it's almost like cloaking bad people in the robe, but instead of the Catholic Church, it's the woke ideology, right? Mm-hmm. So if one of our, tests for a priest is to make sure that they don't have impulses of they're mature and healthy before they get to be a priest, well, let's make sure a transgender person isn't one of these masked scoundrels that are just looking to hurt other people. And if you give into it, it's just going to magnify all their tendencies, but also cloak them and cover fire so they can act with less punishment.
Yeah.
But that's unpopular, and it's tough to say those things. But that's really all I want. I want to engineer our way out of these things, not make this dogma so sacred that you can't bring up that question, and not have people outraged that you suggest that people want transgender surgeries, that some of them might be broken.
Yeah, I feel this is one of those things. And again, the reason why we're having this conversation is if you bring it up, there is a knee-jerk reaction to get mad and offended. That needs to not, like, that is what we need to stop. Don't have the knee-jerk reaction to get mad and offended. Suddenly somebody is pushing back against something or saying something you don't like, and now they're an enemy and they're the bad person. Listen, discuss, see why they're talking about it. Maybe there are good points, and be open to conversations rather than stifling things that now all of a sudden we can't talk about it. We can't talk about it because when you don't talk about it, then people get hurt.
Yeah, it festers, and again, it's the same corruption in the Catholic Church. If you allow it to fester, then you almost think the permissions are tolerated and encouraged. And if you have bad actors in any segment, what's your mitigation plan? How are you trying to take a person that never should have pursued those things and keep people safe from them, operating in the rest of society?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Joe. Joseph says, I had a FBI and background checks done to deliver food to a daycare center.
Yep, as it should be.
Jennifer says, they become suicidal due to misinformation from panic-driven rhetoric without education.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that fully. I think that's not a great, portion of it. If they have pressures from people who disagree with whatever, and they're in a sensitive, vulnerable position. But that's where actual mental health care could, if they were unbiased and they weren't an advocacy group, they can dig into the psyches of people, help them, build. Like if you're going to run a marathon, your trainers don't want to just teach you how to run, but to be strong. So what you're about to, undertake, you're not going to be more damaged because you tried to do that thing. So mental health should be about creating the fortitude so that when you go into this hard arena, it's not the race's job to be easy so that you don't get hurt. It's about you being strong enough to further the decision you're about to make.
And this is another reason why, again, these conversations are so important. A little while ago, Julie said, there's not a mass amount of these just greedy, evil doctors doing this to make money. That's a narrative pushed by conservatives. I have also heard that the child being suicidal if you don't let them do this is a false narrative pushed by the left to scare you into letting you do this. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or one is, more misinformed or nefarious than the other, but I'm telling you, look at the two different things and both sides are saying, well, you're wrong, that doesn't actually happen. And someone else will say, well, you're wrong, that doesn't actually happen. And if we're not allowed to discuss it, period, then both sides just agree the other side's wrong and it's not happening and nobody actually knows what's happening and if somebody is getting harmed. And if somebody is getting harmed, can we prevent this? Nope, we can't. Why? Because we're not allowed to talk about it.
But if it's only happening in 1% of the instances, that's the best time to be able to fix something. If it's 40%, right? Then it's too late to fix.
Like, wait,
you're already
so we
stuck.
have to wait until a large group is suicidal or a large group of greedy doctors are acting?
If there's fraud in elections, right? Do you want to nip it in the bud while it's 1% and figure out why fraud happened in the first place before it scales up?
A lot easier to fix than when it's just rampant.
Yeah.
Julie says, this is the same conversation that applies to the stupid SAVE Act. 0.0000003% of fraudulent votes is now a big deal and requires all voters to jump through hoops.
Yep. Again, you nip it in the bud when it's a small problem, and see, that's the thing. Like, politicians love unsolvable problems because they can get elected on it. These are actually things that can be solved, and there are specialties that can study it and tell us exactly why something is happening, and then we can take our tool set and find out if what's bad, that even if it's only happening in minority of the situations, if we have a tool that makes that thing better. So you're either making a situation worse by being ignorant that a problem exists at all, or you take preventative steps when a problem is small to either make it not get any bigger, describe it so we know actually what's happening. But the conversation is so dumb that we pick our data point that supports us and we won't ever come off of it. And if anybody challenges it, That's when we have disagreement, where it's our delicate standpoint can't survive if you challenge the that predicated theory.
Yeah. Jennifer says the misinformation is dangerous. The topic is not. It is also very low impact to the general population. Therefore, both things can be true. And here's where, when we talk about the misinformation is dangerous, if you're referring to because suicide comes in play when we look at things like this, in my unprofessional, unmedical opinion, just my average Joe opinion, I am not one to support making a major decision out of a desperate situation. For example, if you are hard up on money and you don't have a job and you don't have anywhere to live, you know, I came from a military town where that is prime for people to get married. Let's get married because you have a job and you can support me. Even though we're not really in love, it's a desperate situation, I'll marry you. Bad idea. If you have a child that is suicidal, you don't act out of a desperate situation. That issue alone needs to be addressed. And if they are of sound mind and not suicidal, but they still care about this, then we look into it. Then maybe we have considerations. Then maybe they can do it eventually. But to say, do this because they're suicidal, to me is that's exactly why you shouldn't. You shouldn't be acting. If they're already in a heightened state of despair, why would you throw hormones on top of that, medication on top of that, surgery and all of the things that surgery comes with on top of that? I see that as you just acted out of a desperate situation, which is riskier than, wait a minute, everybody calm down. Let's make sure we are in a sane, safe, healthy place to actually think and consider and then act if it is still the right decision for you.
So, and you saying misinformation, that misinformation is dangerous, but I don't trust your authorities on what is information at all, right? So that means nothing to me. Even during the COVID things, like I had to dig around and through the information to get to the real data. So what I'm being told by a professional is not the same as the data I need to be able to make decisions. So you can throw that out, that we don't have a shared standard on who gets to have the authority. And we work more off of our own theories of possibility and probability. I know when I'm looking at something that is either I didn't come up with it, so I don't know that it'd be true. The only thing I could say is I read that somebody else said it, and it needs further investigation. Mm-hmm. So use my example of you had a kid that didn't fit into groups with peers or also a person of the other gender, right? Didn't fit in. Life is terrible. They don't really like going to school every day because they just don't fit in. They're sad, right? They have and so they're like, oh, I have this escape mechanism. I could join this other group that is, you know, they adopted me in, they accepted me, they gave me peace. What happens if you get to your lifeboat, which is not as solid as the traditional boat itself? And what happens if you start getting rejections from the group that was tolerated? You don't have a second lifeboat. That was your thing. If that doesn't work out, now you're sad and you felt incomplete, but you knew there was this mysterious place that probably accepted you. You went there, find out you couldn't even get acceptance in that group. Now you have magnification of where your sadness might come from. Possibility, maybe even probability, that you have suicides in that group because it's not a specter that people don't accept them. Now you have two real world evidences of groups that solidly rejected you and you didn't fit in. Now, does your suicidal tendencies go through the roof? Where in the other ones, at least you can latch on to maybe I would be accepted. Here, you got two examples like you're not being accepted. You're terrible. Yeah, like you put all your mental health and security on an outside factor. Mm-hmm. And if that turns out to still not help, you're screwed. You did no other survival mechanism, training of security, and feeling some kind of way on your own. You're like, well, this is my lifeboat. Yeah. But the lifeboat didn't work. What if your lifeboat is more unstable in all the ways where you needed it to be more stable? It appealed to you in like one of the ways you needed at the moment, but were unfulfilling in every other way. You lived another day where this thing would have killed you, completely because you were checked out. This one ultimately is the nail in the coffin for you because it wasn't like traditional values and family structure and the underpinnings of stability. It was a Hail Mary when it came to, is this thing going to save me from feeling terrible about myself and not included in everything, that I need it to be. So you might be so much worse off even if you get a couple elements of inclusion, but total instability in the fulfillment department. Now you have sadness that can't even be measured.
Yeah. She says, I'm not talking about disagreeing and discussing. Did I read this one already? Oh, no. I'm referring more to dismissal and immediate denial. The child saying I'm XYZ and the trusted adult blanket saying, no, you're not. Stop it. I mean, I guess that's just a situational how the parent handles it.
All right, well, okay, change it then.
Okay.
So let's just say you got a 12-year-old, and the 12-year-old said, I think I want to start investing, right? And your parent instincts are like, wow, you know what? This is an opportunity to, like, throw $10,000 in an account, and let them go wild and learn from the experience and give them exactly what they want so I don't have to tell them no. As a parent, you're like, I need to delay this. Like, I love the fact, and I acknowledge the fact that there's some, meaning in them wanting to invest. And I want to dig where that meaning lies and see if I can fulfill that meaning in a way that's not going to be destructive and puts his life in jeopardy down in the future. So I'm, as a parent, going to delay those impulses to do that thing right now, use it as a moment to teach where my real vulnerability or what my real reason was and whatever. And I might spend the next 4 years never letting that kid on his own invest. I'm denying them that impulse to actually invest. But I can create analogs along the way that support the positive behaviors that are within that idea, right? And take the destructive ones and mitigate completely. So I know I had to change the nouns and verbs on this to get you to understand that our job as a parent isn't to give in the whims of a 12-year-old and think we're doing some kind of justice in society by giving people exactly what they want.
Yeah.
Oh, I need water. I'm talking so freaking much.
Jennifer says the suicidal thoughts are the aftermath of the dismissal, not the precursor to the situation. And again, a child can feel dismissed in many ways. You are going to have parents that can gently say no, and you can have parents that say, get the hell out of here, you're crazy. You can't control every parent's reaction. But there are lots of kids in the world that are dismissed by their parents that don't suddenly become suicidal. There's a lot of different things a parent can be dismissive about. I just don't think that people need to feel like if you don't parent in this specific way and you don't address your child this way, speak to them this way, give in, or at least have a discussion in the way they want you to, a child, and that could alter suicidal tendencies, then we have a much bigger problem than what we're talking about.
That's important. Much bigger problem. Where the Jennifers of the world, myopic, it's that suicidal is caused by X. If you were really in science, there are probably 100 variables that contributed to that outcome. And you're going to pick one that supports your argument and make it just that one. Where I bet you if we remove just that one, there are 99 left of them that put them in a position, and they're vulnerable, and they're unstable. You got to work on knowing all of your variables and removing the ones that cause the destruction. Don't get hung up on the one you like best. Be willing to admit that might be one of the variables, and I'll agree with you that might be one of the variables. But there are a whole lot more involved in this menu.
Yeah, if my child comes to me and is like, hey, I'm going to go hang out with this group of kids that I know gets into a lot of trouble, and we're going to go cliff jumping, I'm going to say no. Well, but I really want to, and I know what I'm doing. No. And nobody would push back against a parent saying no in that instance. But it's like now all of a sudden you have a topic that it's like, hey, you better consider this is a very big deal. Well, to them, that's a very big deal. Like, if my child says, let me do this or I'm going to want to kill myself, that's an extreme reaction. That reaction is the problem. It's not the parent with the problem.
Let's take your example and make it one for one with what we're talking about here. So your kid wants to go with a group of people that maybe you don't know, and they're going to go do something that is an elevated risk of safety, and they're going to do stunts and make challenges to each other, and they did something too dangerous and they landed on a rock, and this isn't suicide, but this is going to be something where they took injury.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you're Jennifer, you're going to say one of those elements added up. There were 10 people there. One person got hurt on a rock, right? Let's have the variables. If you can remove one of them, right, what makes the rock hit not happen? So if you take and put your kid in a group of people that they know, you change one variable, you put them in the know. Did the people they were around, did you then minimize the risk of hitting a rock by taking one of those elements out on its own? No.
You're talking
Right?
about... Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
yeah.
it added up, that it added to the probability that they were going to get hurt because they're around people that you don't know if they're going to egg people on, if they're going to, watch somebody get hurt and take joy in that.
Yeah.
Then the egging on, then the jumping risk and going to the place and whatnot. So in your mind, you're like, well, I need to mitigate this by I can't control the outcome. I can't control this environment, but I'm interested in no rock hit, right?
Yeah.
Could I say the lazy way? Don't go. And then what's the chances of you not hitting a rock if you don't go? 100%. So if you can't control any of the variables, then the no is what stops the rock hit happening 100%. If you can control the variables and you make this one a little bit better and make this one a little bit better, put some rules and regulations, put some thought into this one, maybe you only make it 75% a chance that they don't hit a rock. You've done something that in the stats, in the aggregate later on, you will see fewer kids go to rock jumping and don't get injured. And that's why you got to take that theory and apply it to this. If one is happening and it's your kid and it's way too many and you need to mitigate that deal. If you're like, oh, only 5 people did cliff jumping, it's not worth even the effort of saying, no, don't go because it doesn't happen often enough. That's a parent's judgment to see what the risk tolerance is and how many people after they go and after they get hurt, how many of those people who say you shouldn't care about this are going to be at the hospital paying the bills, making your life whole. If they're not there, then their opinion doesn't matter how much you want to look at the outcome because they have no stake in that at all. It's the people who actually will be hurt or helped by it that have all the opinions, and that's it.
Yeah. The misinformation is thinking that a child goes to a psychiatrist and says, I'm born in the wrong body, and they say, great, let's schedule a surgery.
I didn't say that. I'm saying that
Yeah.
doctors are participants in the behavior. And there are doctors who I can theoretically see as encouraging and almost gleeful about that happening.
Yeah, I don't think all psychiatrists would do that. I
No.
would hope there's a lengthy discussion and consideration. I do think some will take that kid and go, well, I validate your feelings, and this probably is true. So
Right.
let's start saying, what are we going to do about
and
this?
we're making these logical leaps because if culture supports it and science is tolerant, you can picture people in that industry that are advocates of it and are zealots because of it, right?
Yeah.
And if those exist, I can't name a name of one of those that are happening. but
I'm
it's-
sure there's a ton of priests that would never, ever hurt anybody. Wouldn't dream about hurting a child. But if it happens, don't you, like you said, want guidelines and laws and things put in place? So maybe that does actually happen sometimes.
Yeah, so if you think that there's a priest that sees that they'll have authority, they'll be around kids, are gleeful that they're going to have the opportunity that within the confines of the church misbehave. Same thing. You have a doctor that's in the confines of the protective medical associations and the whole industry as a whole. They can get away with the thing they want because the advocate on the street screaming into a megaphone about how much they want something is the same human nature that exists inside the medical facility and in the actual office.
Yeah. I mean, to scream church is bad and all religion is evil, to me, that's misinformation.
Yeah, but we got to get rid of all of those buzzy words like
3
misinformation.
minutes. Yeah.
Because it's meaningless, and people who are seeking real truth, I don't get hung up on it. I dismiss it, and that hurts your feelings that I am so dismissive. But that when it becomes cliche word, where you believe about it, and we have different definitions on a word, language is all about the agreement that a word means a thing.
Yeah.
And if your side sort of pollutes that word and makes it mean something else. We could be having a full conversation and be meaning completely different things. So I don't use misinformation. I say people, and I'll argue, and that this will make you mad, that when you say misinformation, it could be encapsulated in just information you don't like to hear. And that would be misinformation. And you would make the argument there are people not as smart as we are that hear that thing, and then they get information and they draw the wrong conclusions. And protecting dumb people from information that rings wrong, right? This happened with the Epstein files the other day. There was I think it was not Ted Lieu. What's that other guy that was, maybe it was Ted Lieu. Anyway, you had Massey and you had these unredacted group. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he came out to the podium and said, in the Epstein files, there is an accusation that Trump raped children, right? Said these things because in the whole course of the files, there was a tip that came over a phone that said it happened. It made its way in the files, and then it happened in the files. He read the files that said there was an accusation that Trump raped children. And the headline from that was Epstein files say Trump raped children, right? Not there was
different.
There was an anonymous tip in there that somebody anonymously said that Trump raped children. Can't be too many words, but where would that? Which is misinformation? Misinformation would be I want you to come to technically right. The papers did say Trump raped
those words were used.
Children,
right?
And so the headline wasn't inaccurate, but it was to persuade you in one direction. Misleading. That to me is misinformation when you want dumb people to come to a conclusion other than the truth.
Yeah. I think we're out of time, but thank you, Jennifer, so much.
Yeah, that was a good conversation. We talked a
Yeah.
lot. I screamed into the microphone. I made my voice hoarse, but I appreciate all of you. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.